I want to scale you to the world.
Man, you're not hitting the algorithm if you say stem cell, because people were way more accepting of non-traditional beauty measures than they were health measures. Welcome to the Zero Downside Podcast with Dr. Wade McKenna, sponsored by MoabTexas.com.
Beyond marketing, beyond the time, beyond everything else. I mean, one of the things I always told you, my biggest fear with you is scaling you. I don't have more than one Dr. Wade McKenna. And so one of the massive commitments, which I'll be honest, was a huge gut check for us, is we closed our traditional based clinic. And that's where you started. People would drive to that parking lot because that's where their grandma or their mom or their sister or another family member,
because I'd been there for 20 years.
Yes. And you circulated in your early career. When we first met, you were still covering high school football games every Friday night. You were on the sideline of some other school.
One kid on my shoulders, one kid on my hand.
Yes.
Hit 5 high schools on a Friday night.
Man,
talk to the coaches.
You
Saturday morning clinic.
set more shoulders back than anybody I've ever known in my life.
Small town
on the side of the football field,
but it
with the
took
foot in the
that.
axle.
But that's a commitment for you. You know, if you're told as a doctor, you've got to have a busy clinic and you need a full schedule, and and all your OR block time better be filled. Yes. So you made the decision.
Worst way to monetize your time in the history of man.
Yes. But it was part of the factory. You closed the factory. That's what I was getting to with the shift in you. It's not a small investment for someone that's an independent doctor to say, I'm going to close the traditional part of my practice and focus all of my effort and time on this. You still do what's considered traditional surgery, but you're doing bone marrow with it. You're doing the things that you believe in.
Patches of amnion.
Yes.
Wrapping nerves.
But you only accept the situation that you feel is best for the patient, which, here's the thing, that's not the most lucrative option coming from the business guy, but it's a huge commitment that you've chosen to make. I think it takes a Hannah sometimes to walk into a practice and go, hey, I'm going to shelve a modeling career and I'm going to put aside a big marketing company that I have because I need to get your voice out. My whole thing with you with the networking, right? The e-commerce was, I want to scale you to the world, right? That's my mission statement, working with you as a friend, as a partner. All along, my why is you. Because I genuinely believe in the care that you provide.
I think Hannah kind of stepping away from some of the modeling time and some of the marketing probably saved her dad's foot.
Yeah.
Right. That's a pretty, probably kept your grandfather out of a wheelchair.
It was a lot of you, and yes, my access for my own family. Like I realized that was a huge, valuable asset.
But it took you being,
I think it was more
in the right place at right time and being able to see results.
See results and speak to the patients. And I think that was the two main motivators. Was you, yes, giving you the spotlight you deserved, giving you the stage that you rightfully earned. And then also speaking to the patients and hearing just how much the system has failed. Yeah. Everybody.
But I mean, I think that and I mean it when I say that right now, I think we're the best staff I've ever worked with ever, right? I think that I genuinely like coming to our clinic, and that's not always been, because
everyone
the case.
Gets it. Prior, you were still in the factory, where also you had the factory intakers, and they just knew the standardized, and they would get frustrated.
Yes,
you spent 2 hours or 3 hours with the patient. Why did you spend
an hour with that patient?
Yeah, because they didn't.
There were a lot.
We can only
really
cut 3 codes on the paper. Like after the first 15 minutes, he was wasting our time, right? And I'm like, really? Was I? Like, because it didn't feel like that, you know?
It was a lot of good people that had bought into the old system. And I think you get runs.
I do think I think it's like anything else. Sometimes the business gets started with a certain group of people, and because you get used to I think it happens in surgery all the time. You open a new hospital or a surgery center, and because volume is so slow, everyone gets used to not really working and still being on the clock. And then as you start getting volume, everyone's like, oh my God, we're working too hard. And you just kind of have to change people and get people that are used to being busy. And that just feels like a regular day to them again. And because when it's not busy, you're not covering it, right? Like you're losing. And if you're losing money, you can't keep the doors open, right? So keeping the doors open, I don't want to be my job. I want to, we laugh all the time because I say, I just want to do the cool part, right? I want to stroll in, do the cool part, right? I have
But yeah,
all these
you're
cool toys.
Our HR department as well.
I'm our HR department. Yeah. I want to stroll in and do the cool part. And then I want to make patients better. And I want to stroll out and I want the rent to be paid. I want the employees to all make
happy.
money. And I want everyone to come to work. I want to buy everyone lunches. And I want there to be this unlimited resources available to take care of everyone we do. If it wasn't for Mike, making sure rent's paid. If it wasn't for Hannah, making sure there's patients that understand how to even pay for services, I don't get to do the cool part.
Yeah.
And so, but I think right now we have a lot of people on the same page.
They're all bought in.
Yeah. I think even with when we talk about specifically the people here, because I've obviously, I mean, if you take a look at me from 2 years ago now, there's been something different. And it was because I finally stopped using sales as just a crisis management tool, right? If the boat was leaky, but because I had the coolest patch in the world, I pulled something out of the freezer, stuck a needle in it, and I got better enough to ignore myself, keep kicking the ball down the road. With the tools we have available for people and how easy it is to make some people better outside of traditional medicine, I think now Hannah, she gets to see that I know what modern medicine would have had available for your grandfather. More surgery is probably not the answer at this point. Where's his back? Your dad, I know that there's a point where someone's going to have taken that off already. I know with Mike's in-laws, they would have replaced his hip and fused 3 levels in his back, and he doesn't have any metal in him still.
Yeah.
And he's still doing better.
He's doing phenomenal.
Because he has some other health issues that would have gotten worse had they went through all that surgery. I think your mother-in-law, there's some joint replacements that she's avoided. I mean, like it's
my father this week needs any other office. It's a total joint.
Oh, for sure.
For an 80-year-old, it's instant. That's the factor. Right?
And your dad is way too active, has way too much range of motion, and it doesn't take enough pain medicine for me to tell him he needs a total knee.
Yeah, he takes no pain medicine.
So why would so I think it's easy for us to have been bought in, and it makes it easy for us to see it, and only through creating some kind of a marketing presence do we get to continue to keep the doors open. And so even while I felt like, man, we've wasted so much time and effort, it really, I think that I still hope that what we've done is built kind of a platform that's made your job a little easier, right? In the beginning, there wasn't any content. How do you create?
It was sitting in the rooms with you and jotting down notes on what you told patients so I could translate it to people, because they're all from out of the country or in all different states. So
because it's the 3 degrees of separation, right? We laugh all the time, but we don't have a marketing presence. I didn't have a website. I still don't have Facebook. The Instagram just became a thing. The TikTok is like a week old. The podcast never existed. Okay. How were you going to find out about us?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, talk about New Mexico, because I think New Mexico is it's the plumb line.
It was so funny, right? Because it's not like it's close. And it's not like New Mexico you would think of as the most digitally connected place in the world either, right?
Fair.
And literally Monday or Tuesday, I'm in the hospital doing traditional surgery, painfully, like for 14 hours, because Western medicine is broken and hospital delivery modes are a shambles right now. But one of the physicians there was talking to some other people, and he's like, you wouldn't believe it. Like, because we bring Dr. Stanton, who's one of my mentors. He helps put he does cervical epidurals at our place, where I get to do the stem cell part and get everything ready. And he slides this epidural catheter in the cervical spine where we can deliver intra epidural tissue graft. I've tried to say this in a compliant fashion, to be able to give people dramatic relief. Most of them already had surgeries and not done well. And they're trying to avoid another surgery because the first 3 they had didn't help. Why have a 4th? And we get people better. And he's talking to someone there, and he's like, you wouldn't believe what he does over there. I mean, it's been unbelievable. Like, I was there a couple of weeks ago, and all 4 patients that we were seeing that afternoon that we're doing surgery on in the clinic, because we have a private OR, were from New Mexico. And they didn't know each other, right? You would think if they're coming from New Mexico to Texas for surgery, you get in the same car, you hop on the same plane, and you all come together. And Dr. Stan was like, one of them knew one of them, but the other 2 didn't even know each other. He said, because Mike literally asked him at one point, he goes, how did you guys end up here? Right? Like, well, I talked to this patient on here, and then I had this friend that did this, and there is an anesthesiologist out there that was friends with one of them that I've taken care of, that who we went to school with. But it's always like that, right? So I didn't have a big social marketing presence, but we do a really good job of explaining what we do to our patients so that they're able to tell other people about what we do. And that's...
But now we've made their job easier too.
Right.
Because
you know what? That's okay. There you go. There's the reason for the whole episode for me, right?
Yes.
All I really needed to do, thank you. That's what I needed. There, you summed it up. There's the reason for this.
Yes.
I needed to make it easier for the patient to be able to tell people about where to go.
Yeah.
Bam. Okay. Now I can feel better about the time, energy, and stuff where I want to see a certain number of subscribers or a certain number of likes, because that's how I've been trying to measure success, or hitting the algorithm. And man, you're not hitting the algorithm if you say stem cell unless you're spending a lot of money to do it. And we're not trying to do that. We're trying to educate, making the patients that are sending us other patients job easier.
There's that. And then before we even started was, we're continuing to fight the fight. Like, isn't that what this is all about? Is that we're not just caving into this, whatever our algorithm analytics showing us, because it's going to be not technically shadow banned, but it's going to be pushed because it's not traditional, and it's going to be harder for us to get over that lump. Or are we just going to submit to that? Or
and there wasn't a reason for you or for you 4 years ago. I still didn't think I was fighting that big of a headwind. I had no idea that we weren't going to be embraced already. Like, if you would have told me in the early 2000s that in 2023, I was still going to have to be explaining that stem cell is legal because it's part of you and I can use you to help you heal, I would have quit a long time ago on that, right? There's a lot of easier ways to make a living just doing what you do and not fighting. But all of a sudden you look up, because now I'm old, you look up and it's like how I got so out of shape. I just kept telling myself I'd get to it. And then one day you look up and it's been 5 years. And then you look up and it's been 10. And then all of a sudden I forget that from 2010 to 2020, there's a decade, because I still think of the early 2000s as the last decade. And that the difference between 01 and 11 is harder when you're in your 20s, right? I mean, it's just, but so time passed so fast that I got bogged down in the fray and didn't pull up out of the fray to look at the fight and try to win the war. And you guys are necessary in digital marketing, media presence. I can't win the war without that. And I thought I could.
Unfortunately, yeah. That's every business today too. If you don't have a digital presence or actual footprint, then nobody can find you on their maps or the numbers. Or, I mean, we don't have phone books anymore. We don't have just nobody reads the daily newspaper anymore, like, except maybe older generations, but the way the new generation is finding anything.
Is there even a daily newspaper anymore?
I don't know.
Technically. Kind of. I think it's all digital.
Like Dallas Morning News. I used to read USA Today when I'd fly. Right? You go to the airport and you grab the USA Today, because it was a lot of short, easy, quick. I used to call them toilet articles, right? Something you could get through really quick. But and it wasn't important. It didn't change. It wasn't life changing. So it wasn't a book I was going to carry around. It wasn't like reading the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
I guess the Wall Street Journal still published. I don't take it anymore.
But I mean, everyone's finding it on their phone app. Like, there's an app for all news, and it has all of the newspaper articles.
So that's what happened. Is I had to I had to find a way onto that app world, because you could advertise in the newspaper.
And we're just really putting our toes in the water, or at least you are.
When I first started practice, it was about like the biggest marketing decision that you made and the most financial outlay you did was your Yellow Page ad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You don't even know what Yellow Pages are, do you? So literally the biggest marketing decision you make when you went out in private practice was how are you going to be listed in the yellow pages and the size of your yellow page ad. And it was an abysmal expense.
Yeah.
But that's what everyone used to be able to find you and know where you were. And I did a horrible job because I tried to market the name of a practice instead of my name. It was North Central Texas Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. That was a mouthful. I thought it was cool, described where we were. It was orthopedics, but I still did sports reconstructions. I'm fellowship trained in trauma. I didn't know how to add that there. So I just chose this name, and I didn't want to be in one city. I didn't want to be, and I didn't want to be Wise County. I didn't want to be Decatur. I didn't want to be Fort Worth. It's like North Central Texas. I didn't even want to be North Texas, right? Like just so that, but it was terrible because you know what people looked for? How do I find Dr. McKenna? Well, I didn't have Dr. McKenna in the phone book. It was North Central Texas. Well, how do they know that I'm North Central Texas? It was terrible. Like I did a really bad job.
You did shorten it to NCTOSM, which I think was. I'm not judging. I'm not judging.
Yeah, I mean,
Moab is better though.
Yeah, now.
I mean, everyone still goes Moab, and I'm like, McKenna,
because it makes a way better web address, though, right?
1,000%.
Because I
yes.
wanted to. We finally actually had a real discussion about how do we get a web address? How do we create a page? How do we have a landing page? And so now it's Moab, McKenna Orthopedics and Biologics, Texas, Moab, Texas.com. And now it's more all encompassing. It's not orthopedics, it's not surgery, because so much of what we do is on the regenerative side and the nutritional therapy and the stem cells for cosmetics. And when we have Ashley who can tighten, smooth, and make everyone pretty while I make them not hurt and walk better, right? And so, and the use of biologics in that field is way more accepted. That's probably what happened. That's how the aesthetics part came about, because people were way more accepting of non-traditional beauty measures than they were health measures. For people would pay and seek out alternative care for hair and face and to be smooth and sleep better and stuff like that than they would to make grandma walk.
I have a real problem with what they call biologics in some of the aesthetics companies, though.
Oh, for
I think.
sure.
Now, listen, it's competition.
You
is
cannot
actually
compare
the best
comparing apples to apples in our field is the hardest thing in the world to do.
But the
and
benefit,
have to compete with that all the time. Hey, these people said they could have this done for $2,000. Well, we had all the time. I had a stem cell injection, didn't work. What cell did you have?
Where did
they put it?
How did they know they were in the right spot?
Who did it?
Yeah.
Like, did it come out? Like, you have no idea.
Yeah. I injected the side of my neck, and now
people
my
call
C6
people call everything a stem cell. And that's not right. And it may not even be real biologic. But exosome, that's the word. I really thought that was going to be a really good word for a while, and now it's turned into just total trash.
Yeah.
Right. Which is a shame, because if it used correctly, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so instead, we have to go back to the most general term necessary of postnatal tissue graft, ethically sourced, like for live baby, live mommy. From that we have to answer that question.
Mommy
still.
screened significantly.
Everyone's genetically screened. Genetic screening made all this actually possible, because you can prove that it's safe from getting your own blood back. Right? You're not going to have an allergic reaction to postnatal tissue.
My wife had a really interesting anecdote about you. We like to watch cooking shows, food shows. Like, that's our common ground in my house.
That's how you can tell he married his high school sweetheart, and he's been married for a really long time. And his wife is amazing, and they're really happy. Mike is who most married couples want to model themselves after, Mike and his wife, because she can whoop him on a mat.
I outkicked my coverage big time. Yeah. I mean, the girl, she's a jiu-jitsu
Two beautiful
practitioner.
twin daughters.
Oh, yeah. So she had a cool anecdote, right? She doesn't talk about business a whole lot. That's probably why we're happily married, is we don't bring that home. But with that, we watched this show, Restaurants at the End of the World, and they had the very first episode ever. It's on one of those Mickey Mouse streaming channels. But the very first episode was in Panama, and it was about this chef that lives in the mountains, and he cooks with his wife, and he does custom cooks based on what busload of people gets off to his house. And he doesn't cook things that are sourced there. He has to have everything brought up the mountain. He harvests all of his vegetables. He slaughters the animal himself. He does everything himself, but it's a personal experience that's healthy and cultured and natural. It's not a chain restaurant, right? We talked about the factory. Every restaurant, there's restaurant chains. You go to a Starbucks or a McDonald's or whatever large chain you're going to talk about. You're going to sit down and expect the same meal and same service because they've made it automated and very impersonal, right? Yeah. They have to add lots of sugar or salt to it to make it palpable. But God, at 11 o'clock at night, you crave it. Here's the thing. What made it unique was this guy had his mentor, his lifelong mentor that he looked up to for dinner. And he created an entire custom meal to tell a story about him. And it's a really beautiful episode. The thing about it is there's no access to this guy. If I were to tell you about this and go, okay, now book a meal at his place, you're gonna have to do some digging, and it's not on YouTube, right? And that's kind of a similarity to you, and that's what my wife was getting across is, she literally was sitting down watching it. She's like, that's McKenna. Like, he creates this experience. He doesn't spend 5 minutes with you and then get you out the door and get an image ordered, and then you'll come back in 2 weeks and hopefully you plan surgery.
They're going to cut on you or send you to therapy, right?
That's what it's a personal experience. Hey, you're metabolically broken. There's a lot more going on than just a sore knee. Hey, your image tells me one story. You sitting in front of me tells me something else. That's what you told my dad this week, right? You literally looked at him and said, anybody by this image, you're a total joint patient at 80 years old. But the personal side of it was, I'm listening to you and I'm watching you walk around my office and you're healthy. Right? Why would we take the extreme step when there's so many other options beforehand? Same thing with the meal, right? You're the full course meal, right? It tells the story. You're listening to a patient's story. You're combining your own experience and expertise in your story to it, which is why it's personable. It's why you talk about your grandmother, say, do the hard thing. It's why we talk about your mom and the press on your shoulder. You can feel
that's what happened with marketing. When my mom passed, I didn't have to market when my mom was around. I just should have flown my mom on. If I would have put my mom on an airplane every day, just fly her somewhere, buy her dinner and fly her home. I think everyone that's ever sat next to my mother on an airplane has seen me as a patient because there was no way to sit next to my mom and her not get you talking about yourself. And eventually everyone hurts somewhere, or has something wrong, or has a family member something wrong. And my mom wants to tell you all about the solution. Oh, right. And she was magic in her ability to make people feel cared about and because it was so genuine. But that's what I want. I want that.
But I love how your wife said that, because I even think there's another part of the story, how he has everybody bring up all of the ingredients from up the mountain. And it's kind of like Dr. McKenna has done the same thing with all of the tools and resources. Like, he doesn't need to send you here or here or here or here to go get what the job done is. Like, hey, go talk to Peyton to get on Scold. Hey, go talk to the front, get on MCELA. Hey, go talk to Dr. Phillips about peptides or an IV therapy. You have everything that you would refer out in-house. So it's like, you really do have that like tailored.
You guys have done a really good job of bringing all the services that I want to give to a patient available. Like the service, because there's so many cool things that can make so much difference for so many people. And there just wasn't a lot of access in a central location. And so I think that what you guys have done a really good job at is being able to change the service list, right? Like I have all the cool toys and we have what it's done is given us just a lot of solutions for people. But that analogy is interesting because I love when your wife says you have to know someone, right? Like people say, and we'll hear it all the time. Well, this doctor, I went to this most famous guy here. I don't think I'm ever going to be that because we're having to fight so much of an uphill battle. I'm never going to get a Baylor sponsorship or a banner in a stadium.
It's not going to come from the U.S., but next year has a lot of good promise. I'll just
for sure. I think that there is a foreign delivery method in a country that doesn't have because they're so mad about what happened to them being forced into another narrative. I do think that maybe, but again, we're never going to be sponsored by any of the large healthcare companies, and because of that, we have to be that niche of you have to know someone to find him, right? Like I know this guy and he's in Texas. And if you can just get to him, like he'll have a solution for you. Right. And that's what happens.
That's probably 80% of your patients.
For sure.
Is that, I mean, we've had patients meet in airport lounges, and they've connected, and it's the same thing. It's the New Mexico example over and over and over again. It's always going to be word of mouth. We've had one patient from the Pacific Northwest that is so passionate about it that he'll actually book flights for friends and people that he's just met, bring them down,
right,
and pay for their treatment.
We have one of my, Ann Sandberg. When I took care of her the first time at the previous clinic, when I had, when it was, the McKenna Institute with another guy's name up front. And she probably has, they live in North Dakota, South Dakota. I bet we've taken care of 20 people. Port Townsend, Washington. There's not that many people in Port Townsend, Washington. I had to look it up on a map. I bet we've had 10 patients from Port Townsend, Washington, right? Because it's someone at a gym that got a lot better, that had a bunch of surgery that didn't work. And that's how they found us. I think that maybe what you just said is the best validity ever, is that maybe the reason for the podcast, maybe the reason for struggling with the media content stuff, maybe it really is just about making it our patient's job easier to educate and talk to other people about it, because that way they don't have to know so much when they say it. Say, hey, just go to this podcast. If you just watch this, then you'll know why. I mean, that may be the most important thing said today. Is we're just creating this to make it easier for patients to be able to tell other people about us. That makes me feel better. Then it doesn't feel like a waste of time. I like that.
But there is greater reasons I'm sure we'll figure out along the road. And that's, I think, the beauty of it, that we have to.
Well, and I think that you are, the problem is Hannah has to be the jack of all trades, because what I really want her doing is talking to patients, because she understands what we do so much. And I want there to be a person in our clinic that people can call and have a question, and then that can discuss the finances and can discuss travel and can discuss where we're at without it having to be a doctor phone call, and who can still turn it into a doctor phone call by just getting up and walking down the hallway. Right. So Hannah, there's no one that talks to Hannah that she can't get Dr. Phillips or I or Ashley or Peptide, Mike or Peyton. There's no resource that Hannah doesn't have available to help answer a patient's question, but she already knows most of what we're going to say. And so the best use of Hannah's time usually is on the phone with patients, but she's the only outlet we've had on the social media side too. And that's what she really likes doing anyway.
Yeah.
And so she's trying to balance the waters on all that. And I think that's been difficult. But
it really has, because it's a whole new industry, especially when you want to be taken legitimate and you want to give everyone the credit it deserves. So you want it to look very professional, and you want it to be accurate as well, because this is an unfamiliar territory for a lot of people. So I feel like,
and we have a lot of compliance issues and regulatory things that we have to.
Gotta watch what you say.
We don't want to just come on the podcast and say stem cell, yay! We sprinkle it on everything, and it's better. It's like putting salt on something. Yeah, we're gonna heal everything. Yeah, so we work really hard to not do that.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of people that have monetized IP experiences with you, things like that you developed in 2008, I think is the cutoff that I found. And the marketing is what did it. And I think the thing that we've got to toe the line on, and you've done a great job, is you're not going to sacrifice your authority on the subject matter for hits and likes. We want them, right? Absolutely. Comment, like, please share videos.
I do want to educate people.
Yeah.
I do want subscribers and likes, and I want people to watch, because we're putting a lot of time and effort, but to help educate people and to make it easier for our patients to send to us now. We're making it easier for our patients to educate their friends. I like that idea.
Yeah. And I think that's awesome.
All of a sudden
we're making a move, even
See,
if
you
the
were a
waves
healer
are
today.
See,
this is that's addicting. See, that's how I feel all the time.
Yeah.
Right? When people, it's really hard.
The cool part.
We do make the joke all the time, and my kids will tell you that. I don't really ever feel. I have a lot of self-loathing on never really feeling like I have the time to take care of all the other things I wanted to take care of. But at my core, I get to make grandma walk again. I get to look at people's kid and take care of them, and I get to see the trust in a parent when they trust their child to me, and I get to, I recently did a reconstruction on one of my friend's kid again, and so it's that part of it is why we do this. So it's really hard to feel bad about myself, even if you're struggling on the social media side, or don't have a digital marketing presence, or still don't have a Facebook page, or still don't have, you're still hard to find. Like, you still have to kind of know someone to get to us, right? Like, you have to have the backline number, right? Which is still kind of true, right? We laugh all the time. The only way to get to know me is get hurt. But again, I know we've been doing this for a while. I wanted it to be kind of a free-form visit, because I wanted people to see us I want to make sure that we're approachable. I want to make sure it doesn't look like we're ever just trying to sell something, because we're not. It's about education. But I do want to make sure that people understand that when we talk about being the authority on a subject, it's 20-something years of private experience, over 20,000 bone marrow draws, experiments, and a lot of research on a bunch of different postnatal tissue products, a lot of nutritional stuff, a lot of deep dive peptide therapy discussions. And I've had to surround myself with a lot of people to make that possible. So I want to make sure that people understand we are, but I don't want it to ever feel like that we're doing anything more than just making this easier for a patient to tell their friends about us. And I think that maybe that's the mission statement of what we're doing as a podcast now, is we're just making it easier for you to explain this to your friends and family. So I want you to, my job is to make your job sending us patients better and easier by giving you more information. We'll just go with that.
All right, guys. Well, I think it's been a really great episode. I really appreciate y'all, and I will see you guys next time. Anybody else have a sign off?
I want to make sure that everyone knows for sure that with the reason we did this is that I deeply appreciate your trust. And we're humbled by the ability and trust that you put in us to be able to provide your healthcare. And thank you.